Okay, yeah, my name's Mark Halper, and I have a confession to make. I like talking to nuclear scientists. And that's a lot of you, physicists, chemists, molten salt experts, and the general thoriumati. Now, I say this because I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I do like telling their story. It's become a bit of an addiction of mine. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm American. I'm based in the UK. I write for a number of outlets, including CBS here in the States, has a blog site called Smart Planet. I do the occasional story for the Guardian newspaper, where I live in Britain, and in September, I became blogger in residence. I like that title, for the Weinberg Foundation. And the Weinberg Foundation is a UK-based non-profit group. They advocate safe and alternative forms of nuclear energy. And you've probably figured out that they take their name from Alvin Weinberg, who, as most of you know, built a molten salt reactor in the 1960s. So John and Jim kindly asked me to come here and speak about the year in thorium. Well, what a year it has been. I was here a year ago, and it seems that since then a little mini industry has sprouted. An industry without a lot of money, and I'll get onto that a little bit later in my presentation. But I like to think of this as the thorium trail. So without further ado, let's hit the road. I'm going to go back exactly a year and show you a bit of a slideshow of pictures and technologies. I'm not going to lecture you on how protactinium transmutes into uranium-233. For a lot of you, that would be like teaching grandmothers how to suck eggs. That's a quaint expression I picked up in Britain. Okay, Vince.
Is this a page now?
Page, I did. That one. No. Help.
That's all right. There you go.
Page, all right, okay. All right, that's not a grandmother. That's Baroness Bryony Worthington. She spoke here last year. I like to call her the Thorium Lord. She's a member of the UK House of Lords. She is one of the leading political advocates in the world, really, for thorium. Maybe I should say outside of China, because China has a lot of political advocates for thorium. I think I'd have to add Joe Sestak to that list after hearing him speak this morning. Anyway, that's Bryony at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Last year, just after this conference, she went out and visited Oak Ridge, I believe with Kirk Sorensen from FLIBE. Now, okay, you saw this slide a little bit earlier. I'm not sure, but I think Jim Kennedy has a few opinions on this. This all happened, I'm going down the thorium trail here somewhat in chronological order. So I got wind of this last June, July. This is the DOE, Department of Energy, China collaboration on molten salts. This is a collaboration from the DOE's perspective on molten salt cooled reactors, high temperature solid fueled reactors, but not molten salt fueled, at least from the DOE's perspective. Westinghouse is, we all know Westinghouse for their AP1000, their conventional reactors. They're getting into small modular reactors, but they are, I think, more than dabbling in some of these alternative nuclear technologies, such as high temperature and perhaps thorium. They're the commercial advisor on the DOE project, DOE China project, and that is Regis Matsi. He's the retired Westinghouse CTO, and he chairs the commercial advisory panel for that. So, as I said, from the DOE's perspective, this is not a molten salt fueled project. Where's the molten salt? Well, it's in China. China is looking at molten salt fueled reactors. More than looking, they're developing a molten salt fueled reactor. But things have changed there slightly. So here we are on the trail. This is around August. This is August of last year. I think a few of you in this room were at this presentation. This is a slide of a slide, I should be careful to point that out. This is not my slide originally, but I lifted this from a presentation that a gentleman named Kun Chen gave from the Shanghai Institute of Nuclear Physics. He gave this at the University of California at Berkeley last September, and his time frame for China developing a molten salt reactor was 2015 for a 2 megawatt cooled, and 2017 for a 2 megawatt fueled reactor. Now, that would change by October. This gentleman's name is Hugh Hongji. He is the director of the Thorium Molten Salt Research Center at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and I heard him present at the Thorium Energy Conference in Shanghai in October, and he indicated that a slightly different, and I should say delayed, those weren't his words, but his time frame was different from what we heard in August. I think the, let's see, so he said 2017 and 2020 for the molten salt cooled and molten salt fuel. That's his slide. Again, this is another slide of a slide. So that's a slide of his that I photographed in Shanghai. And also at the same conference, this is Jiang Mianhang, the son of the former president of China, Jiang Zemin. And he is, or was, and things are in flux and changing, so I have to confess not being completely up to date to who is running what, but he at the time was running the thorium molten salt reactor. As far as I know, he still is, but China's China, and I don't have special access to who's controlling what there. Now, he gave quite a ambitious perspective on how China will use a thorium molten salt reactor, and he mentioned some of the applications that we heard about this morning from Joe Sestak and some others, including using the process heat for things like coal gasification, hydrogen production, and others. So they do have process heat as well as electricity in mind. Okay, so moving on now. This is around the same time as, in fact, slightly before the Shanghai conference, also in October. This is a South African company, and this fits in neatly with what the DOE is interested in, because this company, TEAC5 Thorium Limited, they are developing a solid fuel pebble bed thorium reactor, and that gentleman is Trevor Blench. He's their chairman, and here are some fast facts and figures about STL, TEAC5 Thorium Limited. They're based, I'll just rattle this off, based in Centurion, South Africa, modular pebble bed, 35 megawatt electric, 100 megawatt thermal, helium cooled 750 degrees. They think they can commercialize in 5 to 10 years. Now, here, stick with me here. They're 20% owned by Canada's Great Western Minerals Group, and they're a sister company to Rareco, which is a rare earth mining company. So Rareco, their sister company, is getting ready to pull monazite out of the ground in South Africa. And from that monazite, they'll get the rare earths and the thorium. Maybe they want to donate some to the Thorium Bank. Is it open yet, John?
It's called my basement.
Yeah. All right, I'll give Trevor your address later. Yeah.
It's stored here on my radar.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, for those of you keeping score, if this sounds familiar, about a year ago, this company was more or less called Q Power. There's been some changes in ownership and management, and they're now called STL. They also own 15% of Thor Energy. Thor Energy is a private company in Norway, and they're getting ready to irradiate thorium plutonium MOX. STL is looking to put together a consortium of industrial owners and customers. They want to have about 10 companies altogether, and they think some of these companies could come from the coal industry. Now, okay, I said it was becoming a bit of a mini industry. Here's another company that entered the radar since last year. Do these two youngsters run Twitter? I mean, that's what this I see this and I think they're up there talking about Twitter or Tumblr or Jumbler whatever the latest social media is. No, this is transatomic power. And those are its co-founders, Mark Massey and Leslie Dewan. They're MIT PhD students. What I like about this is that, we heard from Katie Hudak this morning, and we need a youth movement. And if nuclear is going to reverse it's going to overcome public opposition, I think a good place to start is with the younger generation. Well, there you go. I do think this is good for nuclear rebranding. And here's some facts and figures. Molten salt reactor, I'm pretty sure that 500 megawatt electric is correct. All good reactors deserve an acronym, so they call theirs the WAMSR. It's a waste annihilating molten salt reactor. But I think depending on who their audience is, I've seen other presentations from them in which they simply call it the uranium molten salt reactor. It combines uranium with spent fuel. That's the waste annihilating aspect of it. Uranium first, their fuel will be uranium, and then possibly down the road they will use thorium. Co-founders are Mark Massey and Leslie Dewan, the PhD students. Also, Russ Wilcox is a co-founder and CEO, and he comes from the IT world. He was very much involved with E-Ink, maker of e-reader displays. Other adults, advisor Richard Lester from he's the MIT head of nuclear science and engineering. Regis Matzi, we saw him earlier. He heads the DOE China Commercial Advisory Panel. He became one of their advisors recently, ex-Westinghouse CTO. Other names, some of you will probably even know some of these people. Jessica Henn from Oak Ridge, Benoit Forget, I think you say it that way, from MIT, Todd Allen, Idaho National Laboratory, Ken Sawinski, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Michael Corandini, University of Wisconsin, and president of the American Nuclear Society. Funding, trying to raise, that's my little journalistic TK, that means I don't know. To come. I think I know, but I would need to check that first, so I won't hazard a guess now. Now, it's worth noting that they recently won top prize in a DOE-backed future energy pitch-off, and the judges of this included Shell Oil's Game Changer Group. So just something to bear in mind, that there's an oil company sending out a judge to a panel selecting a molten salt reactor company as a winner of, they chose it out of 200 energy technologies, including solar and all the other usual suspects. So, take note, oil is interested in this on some level. I think we'll say, we heard from David LeBlanc about that. We heard from Joe Sestak and the natural gas connection, and I think I have another slide coming up a little bit later. Now, some of you might recognize that guy. Boy, have I got, now I've got a reactor for you. Russia, if you want a reactor, and let's say you're running an emerging country, but you don't have the money or the resources or the expertise, Russia will come and build it and operate it for 60 years. So they'll provide the car and the driver. And they're doing that with more or less with conventional technology. They have relationships with Vietnam and I believe Bangladesh and all sorts of others. So they are on a push to sell nuclear technology abroad. They are also planning a lot of fast reactors at home. They have all that natural gas, world's biggest proven reserves by a long shot. They want to carry on exporting it and build nukes at home to provide their energy. All right, moving on. I love this slide. I'm going slightly off course here, but this is a it's Russian, of course. It's a nuclear icebreaker. Only the Russians have these things. This happens to be escorting liquefied natural gas to, guess where? Japan, a country that has been guzzling fossil fuels since it shut down its nuclear plants. Speaking of Japan, this is Motoyatsu Kinoshita. And this is in Shanghai, back at the Thorium conference in October. He's holding a copy of Alvin Weinberg's autobiography. There it is, translated very handsomely into Chinese. And TTS, based in Tokyo. I'm gonna go through these quickly now. I just got the 5-minute signal, and I have a few more slides. So TTS is building a single fluid reactor, thorium molten salt, which they will mix with plutonium, and I can share these slides with you later. I'm just going to flip through this. They were originally, they used to be called, they have the Fuji reactor. The Fuji reactor, if you've heard of the Fuji, this is the latest incarnation. In fact, they still call it the Fuji and the Mini Fuji. Norwegian wood. I'm sorry, I forced this pun a little bit. Apologies to John Ledden. But Norway's Thor Energy, I mentioned them earlier, is getting ready to irradiate thorium, plutonium, MOX at the country's Halden test reactor. That's where TTS wants to test out its fuel as well. Westinghouse, there they are again, back to the project. That's Julian Kelly. I don't think he's Norwegian, but he's their chief technology officer, and that's him announcing this irradiation plan in Shanghai in October. Nuclear heat. This is my favorite factoid of my presentation. That's a paper mill in Norway, right next to the Halden test reactor, and they are taking heat for their industrial process. And it's just something that maybe larger and more heat-intensive industries can take as a lesson. So there you go, process heat, nuclear process heat in action. Not so moderate. These two guys, that's Jeff Parks on the left and his PhD student, Ben Lindley on the right from the University of Cambridge. They want to put thorium into reduced moderation water reactors, which they say will make the fuel last much longer. To be debated. Prague. Last year, DOE went to China. This year, they sent they're sending a load of molten salts over to the Czech Republic for testing by the Czech Nuclear Research Institute. Again, the project's focused on cooling, not so much fueling. Molten Man, this is Milo Hron from the University of West Bohemia in the Czech Republic, and he was presenting on molten salts in Shanghai. There's those ever-present flowers. Everybody got to smell the flowers as they spoke at that conference. I call this slide "Good Advice." That's John Beddington, Sir John Beddington in British in Brit speak. He up until about a month or 6 weeks ago was the UK's chief scientific officer, and he recommended more funds for nuclear R&D if Britain was going to go with a high nuclear scenario. Britain has proposed nuclear energy scenarios that have anything from 16% to, I think, 70% nuclear by 2050. And he said if they're going for 70%, they're going to need a lot of new nuclear technologies. So the results so far, the government took his advice to the tune of £15 million, $23 million. That'll buy a few pumps. You might find some thorium here. That's a site in the UK called the Harwell Nuclear Facility. There was a project back in, I think, the 80s, don't quote me on that, in Windforth, England, where they had a solid fuel thorium reactor called the Dragon reactor. Anyway, I just recently found out it's waste, it's thorium waste, is on its way to Harwell and eventually for storage. So Britain, and by the way, Baroness Bryony Worthington is working hard at reversing this attitude, but you don't turn a ship around overnight. Britain is unfortunately not getting all that progressive yet with its ideas for nuclear power. It is trying to build more conventional nuclear reactors. Terrestrial energy, this is a bit redundant from what we heard this morning, but this is David LeBlanc's company, which came out in, was it March, David, April? Or anyway, within the last few months, and David told you all about this morning, but there's his small reactor packing a punch with its smarter technology, and he's going to build these a lot smaller than other modular reactors. I will skip this slide because David covered his company earlier. Global growth, nuclear global growth, it's going to be 30%, according to a company called Global Data, by 2020. So by 2020, the world will be generating 30% more electricity from nuclear than it is today. Emerging countries like Bangladesh and many others are getting into it. You know, in Bangladesh, if they had a decent power infrastructure, they wouldn't have to put diesel generators on the floors of clothing factories. And so wouldn't it make sense? Isn't this an opportunity to introduce thorium and molten salts? Well, Here's a company that's doing it, and some of you might have to grin and bear this slide, but this is a company called Thorium Power Canada. This just came out, well, I just recently wrote about it a week or two ago. That's not a picture of Canada. It's Kalimantan, Indonesia, where Thorium Power Canada could soon connect a thorium reactor to the grid or to a water desalination plant. They're in advanced discussions, they tell me, with the authorities there. Indonesia is very rapidly growing country. Remember to water this city. That's Copiapo, Chile, and Thorium Power Canada is also in advanced discussions there to specifically power a water desalination plant in this desert city. These are facts and figures on TPC. I'll skip this. It's solid fuel, and they're not giving away a lot of information yet. Anyway, they think they can build them a lot less expensively than anybody else in this room talks about. So we need to find out more about how they can do that. And they think they can also build them within 18 to 24 months, and they're using technology that a man named Hector DeVerne has developed over the last several decades, and he's based in the Bay Area. Mining the market, they say they have interest from Chilean and Argentinian mining companies. That's a picture of the ordeal after the Los 33 got trapped in the San Jose mine. The city of Copiapo that I showed you earlier is just nearby where that mine is located. TPC also has interest from the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have announced significant nuclear plans, not with TPC per se, but they will continue to export the oil and use nuclear at home. Where will the money come from? The oil industry, I do think so. And now, kids say the darndest thing. Thorium is the future, and even 13-year-olds, such as Katie, who was 12 when she did this video, know that. Meet me in Cranberry. This is my next stop on the Thorium Trail. On Monday, I'm going to Westinghouse in Cranberry, Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh, to talk to them about their thorium and high-temperature molten salt research, and so on and so forth, and to ask them what they're doing with the Chinese. Thank you.